music had to be good because, you know, Spotify are involved, you know. It works, it's good. So we are here to talk about something quite specific. You guys are all very interesting. We want to know what's next for women in the creative industries. It's quite a big question. And if you would like to submit, please do via the QR code, use the chat function where you're streaming from, and I have this magical device, which means that your questions will be modified and appear before me to ask the panel. Firstly, though, introduce yourselves, all of you, why you've been invited, perhaps in terms of your credentials, and perhaps a little sum up as to where you're at with the idea of gender equality. I'm going to start with you.
Small question.
I know, right?
Okay, so why am I invited? You have to ask someone else. But I'm trained as an architect, and I've been working with gender equality and diversity in terms of design and urban planning for several years. Been leading the research lab at White Architecture, which is one of the biggest firms. And I'm now working at KTH, educating young architects with a norm enlarging lens on urban environment.
Incredible. Where are you doing this?
At KTH,
Where's that based?
in Stockholm.
Okay.
So it's the Royal Institute of Technology.
Whoa!
Yay! And even better, or the combination is great that I'm also head of social sustainability in a building company and a developer, Svea Fastigheter. So I'm trying to combine these different parts of equality and equitable design and urban planning.
So it was a good idea for me to try and get the train from Scotland to Stockholm then. Yeah?
Hopefully, yeah.
Okay.
I'm
Better luck next time. Please
did.
book me for next year. I've got to do this. I've got to do it. Thank you very much. That's Rebecca Rubin, architect extraordinaire and all-round incredible thinker. Moving on to our next panel guest. Hello.
Hi. So my name is Louisine, and I am a fashion designer. And 2 years ago, I founded Scandinavia's first rental-only couture brand. So everything is non-sale based, it's rental-only, and it's a very humble, attempt to change the consumption pattern and the customer behavior for a more sustainable future in all aspects. And the reason why I'm here, I guess, is last year during my debut fashion show, I did a fashion show dedicated for human rights. And that show, very surprisingly, went viral worldwide. It was very, very unexpected, and which then just changed my entire life overnight. And I guess that's why I'm here. Like Rebecca said, you need to ask for the fire.
I loved speaking to Louise backstage because the way you described becoming an activist overnight, I just found so compelling and so inspiring for us all, because it can be that sharp, that visceral to change everything. Oh, happy International Women's Day. Moving on. Hello.
Hi.
Who are you?
Well, thank you for asking. So my name is Lisa, and I work with private sector partnerships and strategic engagements for UN women. So, assuming this is correct, but I believe I've been invited to give a perspective on how do we work with gender equality on a global level. What are the issues the creative industry sees when it comes to gender equality, women's empowerment, women's advancements in the industry? So I really look forward to share some perspectives on this in the discussion.
Incredible, very important, if not vital, to progress and change from a global perspective for women everywhere. But I guess, and this is just a hunch, probably quite complex as well.
Extremely complex. Me and Rebecca have had quite intense discussions in the green room on the incredible difficulty of pinpointing what exact is the problem and what do we do to address this.
Okay. Oh, okay, we haven't got long. I can see the counter going down, but I need some of that, chat. So thank you very much. Lovely to have you here, Lisa. Moving on, our final panel member. Hi.
Hi.
Who are you?
Who am I? Yes, I am actually thinking about not presenting myself as you normally do, the current job, but I love the theme we were invited to, which is create your own path. And I believe that maybe I'm here because I'm representing also older generation. So I would say that my path started 40 years ago when I was 19, and I did the most craziest thing I can come up with then, which was to create my own fashion show at IKEA in their main office, or no, not in their warehouse. And I did the design, and I did the sewing myself from curtains. And I actually was allowed to present that in the warehouse. So that's just one of my paths. I also done a lot of other stuff, but to come up just to show that the path is not a straight line. But where I'm at right now is that I worked with innovation at a company, an organization called Innovation Pioneers, where we collaborate and co-create around the innovation capabilities. And regarding gender, well, I'm in the tech world, the innovation world, and I started my path there when I was 50. So I think there's a lot to be said about that. It's never too late.
Yes, and it can happen overnight as well. I need to ask very specifically, because I love this idea that you created a fashion extravaganza via curtains. When you had that idea, because it's quite outside of the box,
Yes.
how did people respond?
They loved it.
Yes!
They loved it.
Was it easier in the past to be eccentric or to have an out of the ordinary idea? Are we overly scrutinized now because of social media?
No, I don't think so. I think it was probably not as easy then. Probably easier now because you can get a lot of attention. But I think it's all about individual creativity. Taking the chances and opportunities.
I love the absoluteness. I think I might move to Stockholm. Because that sounds very encouraging as a general reaction. Okay, so you've all got the credentials. I'm really, really happy to be here and get the opportunity to ask you questions about how we can all create our own paths, as you are living examples of doing that. I would love to ask you, and I'm going to just ask everybody really. Anybody pipe in, there's no correct or non-correct. I just love a big chat. In terms of creating that path, without focusing on the hardship too much, what have been an example of a stumbling block or a barrier that you have been able to maneuver on your path, or maneuver for somebody else? If you're working for the UN, you're working as a representation of a voice of a lot of people. Have you been able to actually get rid of some of the waste on your path? I would love to know some lovely success stories or something that's just an enlightenment moment, whatever it might be.
I can start. I think for me it was when I was trying to find a new path in life, a new direction. Then what was pretty obvious was that there was no jobs to really seek. It was more around how can I find different ways of getting there. And my best experience was that I was looking out for communities and tech communities, especially tech communities. So I found different, and in Stockholm we are really good at that. We have a lot of great communities. So I found, for example, SUP 46, and I found Geekle Meetup. By then was the way to go when you were in tech. So just by going there, I actually learned the profession, and I had gained the network. So being at 50 didn't matter because they all included me no matter what, because I was interested in the topic. So that was my main, hurdle or win to actually be a part of communities like that.
So find your community.
Yes.
If you don't feel like you're naturally immersed in it, there are many to choose from, basically.
Okay, so I might have had my community being an architect amongst architects, but I kind of find my devotion in terms of architecture when we worked you know, those places in the city that you love that are not designed really, but you just love them because they're so vibrant and they're kind of off stage and shady, but they have something. And you can never produce them in urban planning, but you feel that they have such huge value for the community, but also for the urban context and also for innovation, actually. And then, like you say, you should create a city for all, and like every city, all the world says you have to create a city for all. And then we were like, but we never designed that, like that vibrant space. And also, where are the girls? Like, they are not in the spaces we design. So our like main topic was when we worked with a theater group and the statistics of the girls not being in the sports facilities and urban spaces we designed for them, and where we could find, like, with the youth organization and the theater group, a way to kind of illustrate where the girls were at and these outside spaces. And then together in that context, not in the architecture context, but in this other context, actually produce a design that better would fill the needs of the girls. So, and to actually argue that, okay, design matters. If you design in one way, you will attract one group. We all know that, but still. But if we change the design, we could actually attract other groups, and we could make a city that are for at least, not for all, let's say, but for more groups, and in the long run, so maybe for all.
Yes. Have you got any examples of places in the world on International Women's Day that are spaces for all?
But actually, I'd say, like, the streets, in their basic context, are places for all. Like, we all need to pass through the streets to move in. We will be there, no matter how they are designed. And then, let's go to New York, who actually, like...
Right.
Okay, sorry, we can
I
go
will
to
get a
other
vote,
cities as
though,
well.
so I'll meet you afterwards.
Let's go to Google Maps. But they kind of inverted the full structure of mobility from being streets for cars to actually being streets for mobility and for us, and to meet and to interact. So that, I would say, would be the most democratic, like, the most democratic fabric of designing a city for more people, or even for girls, or for interaction, or for the social values of society.
A lot to think about already in terms of the compartments of creating our own path and our own kind of environment, from quite literally how much design matters. I'd be very interested to ask you a bit more about that from an algorithmic or tech perspective, perhaps. But I'd love to talk to you, Louise, about what that means when it comes to the clothes that we wear, because I'm very much a student of eco-fashion, let's say, and have gone on a journey for the past few years trying to eradicate shopping on the high street and when it comes to fast fashion altogether. And it's nearly worked. Like, I think, I haven't bought anything from a fast fashion outlet for a good long time now, and it feels really good. I would love to know what that means from again, design matters, but also how that affects all of us in our everyday lives, because clothes are something that we wear on ourselves in our lives, so they're on our bodies every day.
Yeah, so I love that you're taking that up, and I love that you were saying like
bloody hard.
Yes, and it was so funny. We were talking about this before we went on the stage, that I haven't been shopping myself for a long time, and now coming to this event, I didn't know what to wear. So actually, this is put together with 2 pair of pants and 1 shirt and 1 suit, because people always say, "Louise, why don't you wear the clothes you make?" Yeah, because they're couture dresses. I cannot go, go to a grocery shop. So yes, and. Sustainability is a very, very hot topic when it comes to fashion. Like, going green is the biggest trend right now. And I would really love to discuss the term sustainability. What is sustainability? At least in the fashion industry, mostly we are talking about global warming, cutting emissions and all that. but we all know that everything is interconnected, which means that it's so much more than just that. And yeah, as Rebecca said here. And the word sustainability itself means the ability to sustain and maintain. So the ability to meet the needs of this generation without jeopardizing and compromising the needs of the future generation. So everything that we do that's not something we can do forever is in itself not sustainable. And in that case, I would really like to suggest that genocide and war is the most unsustainable thing we humans do ever in the history. And in that case, that is something like helping those victims from war and genocide should be the most urgent thing we need to do. Because the reason why sustainability and cutting emission and all that is so important is because we don't want to live in a future planet when the life is very unbearable for the people.
Yeah.
But the problem is life on this planet is already very unbearable for a lot of people. Fast fashion is not cheap. Someone else is paying the price. The same thing with everything else. And that's something, fashion industry is $1 trillion business. It's one of the most polluting fashion industry in the world, which makes fashion industry not only having the power to change it, but also have the responsibility. That's very, very important. And going back to what I was saying before about war and genocide, that's a very sensitive topic. We don't talk about it. You don't mix fashion with politics. You just don't do it. And fortunately, that has been changed. I mean, we're really writing the history at the moment we speak. Of course, I'm talking about events that's happening right now in Europe, in Ukraine, when millions of people are, lost their peaceful life overnight, and it's just tragic. It's, heartbreaking to see. And now that we've seen the whole fashion industry is rushing to help Ukraine. They're closing down stores in Russia. They're cutting supply chain. They're giving millions for humanitarian assistance, which is amazing to see. What I would love to see then is now the fashion industry are no longer saying don't mix fashion with politics. Let's do that with all the other countries. Because what's sad is that Ukraine is not the only country in war. Ukraine is not the only people that's suffering. And the way we have been helping them is so beautiful to see. That's how humanity should look like. And we need to do that for the people that look like us, but also for the people that don't look like us, to expand that compassion. And, so this is where I look forward to see like the response for the fashion industry, because the Milan Fashion Week, for example, got called out because they were too slow to respond. We were talking about days. But then we have people who've been suffering in wars in Middle East, in Africa, in South America. We're talking about years, 10 years, 70 years. Like countries like Afghanistan, countries like Palestine, like Tigray. And the least I hope to see in the fashion industry, at least we can stop profiting from Uyghur forced labor. Let's start there.
Yes.
I guess. And when we can do that, then we can talk about human rights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So yeah, all I can say is thank you at this particular point.
Thank you.
I couldn't agree more. Let's open that up to more like sort of authority, perhaps on being in the thick of it from a UN perspective in terms of gender equality, what that means from a humanitarian level, and whether you decide to talk about the current situation or not is up to you. But like, I'm really interested in this idea of collective compassion from every industry. Are you seeing within your role a shift in the consciousness?
I think we do. We see companies stepping up. From my point of view, I work with private sector partnerships. You really see companies stepping up to take on more responsibility in terms of social impact. From the UN Women perspective, we are the global champion for women and girls. So we work with accelerating progress to meet their needs worldwide a part of that is, of course, addressing the needs of women in conflict.
Yeah.
And of course, we can dive into the Ukraine situation, but to take a look at on how we create impact for the many different experiences of women and girls worldwide. We have normative support, we work with a programmatic mandate, and then we work with a coordination mandate. So we provide support in setting global norms and standards that guide our member states when they set their own national policies. But then we also have a coordination mandates, which means that we engage to have everyone else deliver on gender. And this is the space where we engage with the private sector to push them to do more in terms of these issues. And that covers a wide range of things, from fashion, from sustainable housing to tech industry. And then we also have our own programmatic mandate where we have programs. We support the member states and civil society to have their own programs that support the progress for gender equality and women's empowerment. But I think what is particularly important to underline here, and with the context we have today, is that we cannot do this alone.
Yes.
And this is why I'm so happy to be here today and discuss this with so many different parts of this industry,
Yes.
that we can be the collective and global convener for these issues, but we need everyone to push forward and do their part if we're going to end gender inequality by 2030.
And we can?
I think we can.
We will.
We must.
I love the organization behind the passion. That's something that I'm really trying to learn. It takes patience. It means slowing down in every respect. Slow fashion, slow travel, slow thought. You know, the breath that we were doing with Johanna for those that were doing the Burnout to Balance workshop. Because then what for me comes next, and feel free to pipe in online, etc. You know, I'm personalizing this. Is organizing. It's collective. It's coalition. It's resource. It's reading. It's homework. It's like that. The actual really hard stuff, because it's not that hard to feel. It's you know, it's obvious that we're going to feel outrage, that we're going to feel exhaustion, that we're going to like have these insane realizations in the world that we live in, particularly with the amount of information that we have thrown at us so readily. But in order from a UN kind of perspective or ideology, we have to organize this.
Yes.
You're doing that every day. You've just discussed different initiatives where you're seeing that being put in place. For us, reading, feeling, expressing over dinner to our families and partners, you know, that we're unhappy about the current situations. How do we organize that collective?
That's a really good question.
And I'm posing it to us all.
I think you can look at it in 3 different ways. How do you act as an individual? But what do for example, the companies and the organizations that you engage with in your everyday life, how do they act? And then as well as, you know, taking it to the global level, how does your country act on these issues? So I think we can look at it in many different ways. But for example, I think one way is definitely pushing for gender-sensitive business practice. That is something I would do if I was working in the private sector. I would absolutely go for an employer that understands the need for these practices, because that not only relates to my advancement within the industry, but that also relates to how they as a company act within society. So I think you have that multiplier effect with your choice.
Yes. So I guess, again, it's very much focusing on what the path looks like in its length. You know, if you're at the beginning of your careers or you're changing your careers, who do you want to spend your time with, and where do you want to put your energy? And I would go as far as to say, again, from an individual perspective, as we are people of the world that like nice things, I think, you know, everybody looks fantastic. We think about how we use our money, like where it's stored. It's a really, really powerful one, that. And where we put it, where we spend it, and what companies, you know, it says a lot about us politically.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, from the global perspective as well, UN Women engages in these different coalitions with the government, civil society. We work with private sector, parliamentarians, academia to really push, have these multi-stakeholder partnerships that can come together and collectively address these issues. Because we need every little part of society to come together. Really.
And integration.
Yeah.
I can add something to
Yes,
that. Because
please.
I think for me it's all about actually, I think we have too much focus on the intention building, which is around, okay, we want to be more inclusive, we want to be more sustainable and all that. But for me it's all about action. It's about, you know, walking the walk and not just talking. But I think we are, in social media climates, we are tending to do a lot more of the intention work, that we kind of spread, oh, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, but you don't actually do anything. So it's about the true action of what you can do, which is the most important thing. But also the systemic, I work with a systemic change in society, which is about
Thank you.
trying to make you know, trying to make the stakeholders of the society working together. And I would say that that is something that we all can do in our, you know, occupations. And that is actually the hardest work of everything, is to make that translation between all sectors. And that is also the most fun thing if you are up for the challenge, because it's truly rewarding.
Incredible. I'm just so glad, again, looking at it systemically, I get very like, oh man. But there are people whose roles are dedicated to fundamentally changing this, particularly for the next generation. In terms of our environment around us, not just the one that we need to save, but taking on its importance. And I love how you described that gender is quite important in terms of future planning. Can we ask our governments or societal members or councils to consider us when planning is happening?
Yes, and actually, they should. Or in terms of the 2030 agenda, it's all there.
Yeah.
We have the different goals. We have them in big 17 goals, and then we have the 183 maybe. Oh, partial goals.
Wow! Don't worry, I'm not going to be testing you on them.
I'm going to go send yes.
But they are really specific. And then, I mean, being in Sweden, we also have a politics for that are to be equal in terms of design. It's said out loud. So they should. It's just that we have to develop much more knowledge on how we would implement it in every different part, and how we would follow up from the first intention and the talk into getting it through all the sectors from all the different systems, and not stay in one part saying, oh, we would so much love to promote the freedom of movement for small girls on bikes. But unfortunately, we have a norm for cars, and it's this big, so sorry.
Do you think that Sweden has the potential to be a leading example in creating progress?
Yes. No, but we should...
I do, I feel it. I feel like it's here more than it is on Brexit Island.
I would say there are a dialogue going on. So maybe we're good.
But there's always a dialogue, don't get me wrong. It's it's part of the course. But I think at least we're discussing positive intention.
But I'd say we are quite good in gender equality in Sweden and different structures and follow-ups. But in terms of diversity, we have so much to learn. In a broader perspective. And that goes for the urban environment as well. Yes. So, yeah.
And I'm gonna carry on in a second, but now I'm just really ready to geek out. Again, you spoke amazingly about being able to kind of disrupt the usual discourse of how you might design a particular area and study the vibrancy of particular places when it comes to design. And I love that you brought in a theatre group and it became a great discussion on gender. But is that happening racially as well?
I would say not in the same extent. And it's been like the intersexual perspective of young girls, like they are kids and they are girls, so that is easy to take up.
Yeah.
But we kind of, that's where we're at
Yeah.
now. So we have to like develop that a little bit further so we can come with like more perspectives and a broader diversity.
Research and development, they're
Yep.
two good things. Louise, what kind of resistance have you come across? Again, we were talking about barrier clearing. You were able to find the strength to become a self-proclaimed activist overnight. You went viral with your work, you know, being quite out there. Have you ever felt like a bit stifled, perhaps, by this being a huge discussion on a global platform that everybody's got something to say about?
I would say the hardest journey we all will make is the journey within ourselves. Like as women, as a person of color, like every person who ever comes to place, like not privileged or not underrepresented, I think the biggest struggle we have is not with the environment we have outside of us, but the struggle we have inside of us. Like really to remove that victim mentality and despite our difficulty to overcome that and use that as a strength. I think that's the most important part because nobody will like clear a table for you to invite you to sit there. You need to create your own table and to just not wait for things to happen, rather you make things to happen. And to understand that for me, what I really learned is that not having privilege is the best privilege because that gives you even bigger reason and bigger strength to have something to fight for. And I love a quote from psychology and neurology. I don't remember his name. He is a survivor from Holocaust. He beautifully said that the life we live in is only unbearable not by the circumstances in our environment, but rather a lack of purpose and dreams. And I really believe in that. And for me, my biggest enemy is myself, because I believe as women, we have so much power. We need to believe that. We believe in ourselves. So when we remove that fear within us, we are unstoppable. And that's the real thing we need to work on. Really, it's ourselves. Despite what's in our background, what privilege we have, we need to create that for ourselves. And that's it within all the industry. Like all of us are coming from industry, so really hard to break through, especially as a woman. But we all been doing that because we managed to conquer that fear within ourselves. I would love to share a little. It's a super beautiful moment. The other day, I'm swimming every morning. That's a little routine I do. And then there was a little girl, she was standing on the edge of the ramp and she didn't want to jump. And I overheard that it was her first time and this bath attendant came and tried to cheer her up and show her different tips how she can do it. And she didn't want dare to do it. At one point she was looking at me and then I said, how old are you? And she said, I'm 7. So I said, may I share a secret with you? I'm 27, and yesterday was the first time I jumped, and it was super fun. 5 seconds after, she jumped.
Yay.
She got water in her nose, and she could hardly breathe. But it was so fun for her, so she went right back and did it again. And that's the way I want to see ourselves. You know, we will fail. We will do a lot of things. We will, take any wrong routes, but it's fine as long as we just get back to that, have that, courage. We can do anything. And finding our path is really about finding ourselves. And what really helped me was when I start to ask the right question. And the right question is not how to make it, how do I become a successful designer, how do I be famous or rich or any of that. For me, that really became clear when I asked myself, how could I serve? How can I use what I love to do, my passion, to serve? And that's how I think we find our path to, because with the passion and persistency, you will be able to continue on that path, because it's very important. It's not enough to just find what you want to do. You need to be able to continue on that path. And the way to do it is to find something you really love to do, because you'll be having fun and you want to do it. And then have that purpose. When things get hard, you can continue to doing that.
Wow. A philosopher as well as a fashion designer. You made me think about many different things. I love the story about the young girl yesterday. The three, according to particular, I think another philosopher, the three thieves of joy are comparison, expectation, and there's one other, comparison, expectation, and judgment. And I really like that kind of like three rule, because then not only are we able to empower ourselves, but we can actually create the environments for everybody to thrive, regardless of background or past, in terms of moving forward. Susan, I'd like to ask you, in terms of, again, like systemically working within, how do we kind of like protect our activism or our notion or our ideas? Because it must be, you must come across quite a lot of either prejudice or just straight up sexism, or, you know, how do you sort of keep self-preservation to do that job for many years?
Wow, that's a tough one. But I think mostly it's about, like you said, when you have found your own passion and your own purpose, then no one can really take you down, because it's all about that you're true to yourself, but it's mostly also about learning stuff that you maybe normally don't learn. So I would say that, I mean, in innovation, it's not, I mean, it's not super gender equality there, but it depends on what type of occupation you have there. I mean, if you're a tech responsible for AI or blockchain, whatever, maybe there's more, of course, there's more men there, but it's also, I would rather like to focus on the possibilities for women, because, I mean, for example, the future is all about Web 3.0, which is, you know, the next stage of what we can do with technology. And there is I can see that women are probably one of the best suited persons to innovate and create within that, because it's about social impact and communication and the social innovation kind of area where you work with Web 3.0. So I would say, you know, your question was kind of difficult to say in one word, but I would say there is an incredible possibility for women right now to take action, and especially, of course, within very, like we talked about, exponential technologies and you know, the purposes or the need for knowledge there. And if women would be more engaged in those areas, then we would be unstoppable, because it's, you know, that's where we need it, because we need to impact the technology from the basis to create the services for the future.
I mean, I hope that there are tech leaders of the future that can make it a bit more friendly for me, who is quite the Luddite. I don't know if you saw my phone in there, but you'll be disgusted. In terms of innovation, it's definitely going back. But I would like to know, in terms of a practicality, anyone out there who's at the beginning of their tech potential career, is there anything in particular in terms of areas that we can focus on that will help us be part of the 3.0 and innovation as young women? Is there a particular course that we can study? Is it about coding? Like, where is it at? Because it moves so quickly.
Well, I would start to do a lot of MOOCs, meaning the online courses. There is from Stanford, there's from everywhere, you know, really high advanced technological courses, and there is AI courses, and everything is for free. So it's nothing about inequalities in terms of you don't have the connections to go to university, or it's all about, you know, finding those sources is a vital thing, and that's pretty easy to do. It's just ask anyone that's in the business already and ask them, where did you find your sources? And I'm stunned about how many amazing courses there are. I just went for one MOOC the other day, and that was about learning how to learn. So I'm 58,
amazing.
but and that's one of the most used courses right now, because when you are in a shift, a knowledge shift that we are in, then it's a lot of us that needs to unlearn. So the course was how the brain works and how you learn, and I'm pretty proud that I went to a course about learning how to learn, because by the end of 58 you probably should know how to learn, but you don't. So that's one way of doing
I
it.
love that. And how long did the course take?
8 weeks, and you have to follow a path. Just checking boxes that you have done certain steps.
Yeah.
Then you had a nice certificate afterwards.
Perfect. Learning how to learn. And I do think that there's probably quite a lot of unlatching and unlearning that we all need to do, right, in this modern world, especially. I've got a question here from Cazette. He says, how do you address unconscious bias in your different fields? Anyone want to chime in?
Oh, in so many different ways. But if I go to the design, then we work with, we need so much statistics. That's the way we do it. And we work from, I talked about the streets earlier, but who owns cars? How many percentage of our streets are designed for cars? It's so obvious. It's like gender budgeting, but in terms of urban environment. But so it's like statistics, going through everything, and also always making an illustration that is really powerful. That's been our being architect. That's the tool we use.
I can see that you're illustrating here.
I can't think without
the notes being taken and the maps being drawn. This is so exciting. In fact, on that note, I know that there's so much for us to learn, as you say, as a collective and becoming a coalition of progressors. Do you have any questions for each other? I would be so interested to know whether there's something in particular that you wanted to respond to or ask one another.
A lot.
A lot.
You don't often get a meeting of minds from such different disciplines in person.
But you can be sure that this conversation will continue afterwards. It's long.
Definitely.
Yeah, I just find it so exciting when you get different minds together. I went to a literary festival and I was listening to a really old school philosopher and writer called Wole Soyinka. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's Nigerian. He's incredible. And he was just saying what, in terms of where we're at, what should we do now? How can we save the world from all these perspectives? And he's just I think we need to bring together different sorts of people to brainstorm. We need to wipe the slate clean and have a giant brainstorm. And in that brainstorm, we need to have so many different disciplines so that we kind of can reconstruct this idea of hierarchy or superiority from different parts of the world. I think be gone with it, come together, find some humility, but we do need different disciplines within that. And he said the importance of a philosopher in amongst that, and writers and poets are as important as doctors and politicians. But I definitely think International Women's Day is a great starting point of starting that brainstorm. Because women are naturally, probably statistically too, pretty good at being emotional responders and pretty smart and multitaskers and kind of just great people when it comes to equality with strength. Don't you reckon?
Yes.
Yeah! Anyone got any lasting statements? Anything that we should read, a podcast that we should write down right now? Any kind of one moment that you want to leave us with?
I have, please go and read about the metaverse and the NFT world, because we talk about creative industries and there is so much exciting thing happening there, especially in terms of anything from fashion to arts to community building, which is amazing. So learn everything you can there. It's a huge, interesting area.
Thank you.
I would like to say a little something. May I do an experiment with you guys?
Yeah.
For a second. So everybody, may I please ask you to close your eyes for a second? And now, all of us who have ever experienced any trauma, any depression, any failure in our personal life and our work, please raise your hands. And please hold that for me a while. And now please open your eyes and look around. And I would love to give us a big applause. And this is what I love about today. Like, we can come together like this. Thank you so much for Spotify. Thank you so much, Emma, to create a space like this for us women to just really come together. And today's topic is about how to create an impact and how to find our path. And I would say, like, don't try to create impact. Try to be the best version of yourself and have that, compassion not only for each other, seeing now like everybody have a history you don't know anything about, like to have being humble with that, but also be humble with ourselves. Those times we try to beat ourselves down, as women are so good at doing, to understand that no matter how great someone you look up to, every single person have been having failure, and always have that in mind that a winner is just, the difference between a winner or loser, if you can call it like that, is just that the winner never stop trying, and that's what we should do. It's a lifelong journey. We don't need to stress like to get the top. It's the whole journey. That's all.
Is it possible for us all to grab our wardrobes and reconstruct them so that we never have to buy new clothes?
Yes, please do. It's super fun.
I'm just so into that as an idea too. Thank you so much. Cheers. Thank you to all of the panel. Just wonderful. One more round of applause.